From Rocket League to Wild Rift, Pokemon Unite, Smash Legends, and many more, 2021 has been absolutely amazing for mobile gaming, with some of the best ever mobile games of all time releasing this year. And since you liked last year's tier list video so much, today I'm gonna be ranking the 41 most interesting AAA and indie mobile games of 2021 into one huge mobile games of 2021 tier list. All of these games made a meaningful impact this year, and some of them even permanently helped push their genre into the next era of mobile gaming. Since I'm only ranking the games that I have played this year though, I will definitely miss lots of great games, but I'm still very confident that by the end of this video, you will have found at least a few games that you didn't already know about. And I know that at least a few of these games aren't globally available just yet, but that's where today's sponsor, TapTap, can help. But more on that in a bit. For now, let's kick the show off in no particular order with Smash Legends, which was a very unique PvP brawler that feels like what you'd get if Smash Bros and Brawl Stars had a baby. So that means it is fast-paced, there's a decent amount of great game modes and unique heroes, and the monetization is pretty okay for this type of game. And most importantly, the gameplay is just so uniquely fun that I think it deserves a spot here on the A tier row. Now, some of the characters are a bit overpowered though, so that's what holds it back from achieving S tier status. Nier Reincarnation also released this year, and while the Nier IP is awesome and this mobile adoption looks absolutely gorgeous, I mean, just look at this. The gameplay is honestly just lackluster. The story is pretty neat, the audio and sound effects are great, but without a fun core gameplay loop, it never truly excels as a mobile game, so I can't really give it more than a C tier. But then, just as we thought we'd seen everything that 2021 had to offer, Rocket League Sideswipe came bursting into the scene, and holy smokes, this game is amazing. I honestly expected it to be a simple cash grab, but it turned out to be one of the best games of the year instead, with a 9 out of 10 score on MiniReview. And I think what most impressed me is how well it captured that feeling of playing Rocket League on PC and console, and then perfectly translated it to mobile with gameplay and a control scheme that feels native to mobile. It hardly gets any better than that, so this is an S tier game in my book. Next up is Nova Island, which is a 1 vs 1 card battler unlike any other card battler out there. The gameplay is unique, the progression is decently paced, and there aren't 1,000 cards or units to unlock and remember, which I personally really enjoy as it makes it more approachable for casual and mid-core players. There's also no monetization at all right now, so this is an easy A tier game with lots of potential and an almost perfect 9 out of 10 MiniReview score. Nova Island isn't available globally yet though, but that's where today's sponsor, TapTap, comes in. TapTap is a mobile gaming platform and third-party app store that actually supports game developers by taking a 0% revenue cut off paid games and in-app purchase revenue, which is really cool, especially for indie developers. They already have millions of daily users, and since all games are distributed as safe, original, unmodified packages, it's been my go-to place for downloading games that just haven't yet been released where I live. But in addition to being a great place to find and discuss upcoming and new mobile games that match your taste and preference, they also even have TapTap exclusive games. These are games that can only be found via TapTap, and they include fun titles like the Super Smash Bros. And Brawlhalla Early Access Alternative Flash Party or the wacky and humorous arcade battle royale Sausage Man. I really love these fast-paced action PvP games, so Flash Party is right up my alley, and if you're also looking for a good alternative to Brawlhalla on mobile with lots of fun characters and unique abilities, I've left a link in the description box. Thanks to TapTap for supporting this channel. Make sure to help me help them by checking out the links down below, or go directly to taptap.io, and let's then move on to the next game, Guardian Chronicle. And this, my friends, is just my type of game, a unique real-time PvP and co-op tower defense game where we create a deck of 5 heroes that we then place as towers on the map to survive countless waves of enemies. It's essentially a different take on the random dice gameplay, and I really enjoyed the fantasy RPG theme. The monetization, rated 5 out of 10 on MiniReview, does hold it back from achieving A tier status though, so let's place it here in the B tier row. But from some of the best to some of the worst, because oh boy. Okay, yes, Lord of the Rings War also released this year, and trust me, as a huge Lord of the Rings fan, I really wanted to like this game. But ultimately, the heavy pay-to-win monetization just ruined it for me, which is also why it only scored 3 out of 10 on MiniReview. And it's a shame really, since some of the core gameplay actually isn't terrible, but still, I can't get myself to give this one more than an F tier. Let's get back to some of the good stuff though, with the adrenaline-pumping and fast-paced 2D shoot-'em-up action platformer, My Friend Pedro. With an 8.5 out of 10 MiniReview score, this game gets very close to achieving that same gameplay feel that last year's S tier game Cookies Must Die gave me. So while I know that some are disappointed the gameplay isn't exactly the same as in the PC version, I still think this deserves a spot as an A tier standalone mobile game. Next is Bot World Adventure, which is a unique adventure RPG with a brawl-like combat system and a large open world full of resources to collect, enemies to fight, and 30 distinct bot characters to craft. It's a game that definitely shows lots of promise, but that is currently held back a bit by its monetization and dragged out progression, also reflected in the 7.5 MiniReview score. The idea is A tier, the monetization is C tier, so let's land this game somewhere in between here in the B tier category. Albion Online also finally released this year, and while it isn't perfectly optimized for mobile, yet at least, it's still one of the best cross-platform sandbox MMORPGs on mobile. Because I really enjoyed its classless combat system, its active player-driven economy, and the fact that there was no auto system at all in this game. So with a MiniReview score of 7.5, this is an easy A tier game. Now in the world of tactical RPGs, Riven Guard also released this year. And with its turn-based combat system that has us build out a team of heroes to fight through PvE campaign missions, AI PvP matches, guild raids, and much more while collecting resources used to craft gear, it really did have a lot going for it. But ultimately, the monetization system makes it somewhat difficult to really enjoy this game, so I'll have to throw it here in the D tier row. But I hope you're ready for some controversy, because I actually think Warhammer Odyssey was a pretty decent game overall. And before you tell me all about why you disagree, I say this because I think it's an almost great game for those who enjoys this type of MMORPG. It's definitely not for everyone, and I do agree that its gameplay is too slow-paced and there's too little content overall, but it's still a decent addition to the Adventure Quest 3D and old-school RuneScape type of retro MMORPGs, so I'm actually gonna place it here in the B tier row. The developers definitely need to add more content, or this is gonna quickly drop to a C or D tier game though. Next up is something way less controversial though, with The Witcher Tales Thronebreaker, which is a single-player, story-driven deck-building RPG with card-based combat and a huge world full of interesting stories, NPCs, and monsters to explore. It is easily one of the best games to have released this year, and with a simple pay once to unlock everything after the trial monetization and an 8.8 score on MiniReview, it deserves its spot here on the S tier row. We also got a new game from Dragalia Lost developer Cygames called World Flipper this year. And yes, this is a gacha with everything that comes with that, but it's also a pinball game, has neat co-op gameplay, and frankly, not the worst monetization system. With a 7.5 MiniReview score, I think some will really enjoy this one, and for me personally, it lands here in the B tier row. Now, if you ask me after having played over 100 mobile games this year, what the most unique game to have released in 2021 is, Require Online would definitely be at the top of that list. It's essentially a single and multiplayer trading card RPG with real-time card-based battles and then a large open world full of creatures and resources to explore. There's a lot more to this game that I can dive into right now though. It got a 10 out of 10 gameplay score over on MiniReview, and I just strongly recommend checking it out if you like what you're seeing here. I'm gonna place Require Online over here in the A tier row, but with some additional updates, I think it could even deserve a spot as an S tier game. Good old Rovio also released their attempt at a fantasy strategy RPG this year called Darkfire Heroes. But I mean, this game is almost a joke, honestly. Unfortunately. I mean, it really does nothing to stand out, and the monetization is pretty much just horrible. So I'm sorry, Rovio, but I have to give this weird cousin of Angry Birds an E tier score. Now, Bomb Club, on the other hand, is just awesome. I don't think we've covered a puzzle game yet today, but this one has one of the best art, humor, and music implementations of any puzzle game I've ever played on mobile, and because of that, it also scored an 8.8 over on MiniReview. Now, I gotta admit that the puzzles themselves are pretty simple in nature, but because of the fun characters and the humorous story being told, the game definitely deserves an A tier spot. Next up is Raspberry Mash, which is a fun take on this top-down roguelike RPG shooter genre. It may not be as great as Soul Knight or Otherworld Legends, for example, but it's definitely up there, and the monetization is super simple as well, so I'm gonna land this one here among the other B tier games. If a premium pay-once game is what you're looking for though, Sparklight also released this year, and I actually quite enjoyed its cute action-adventure gameplay and light roguelike elements. It scored an even 8 out of 10 on MiniReview, and it's really only held back by its okay-ish control system, which ultimately lands it here in the B tier row, but if the controls improve, I could easily see this move up to the A tier row. Now, when Boom Cards released, I was actually pretty excited to play it, and I even did a video on it, but the gameplay is overall just pretty mediocre, especially now that we have Mario Kart Tour and Kart Rider Rush on mobile. The only good thing about Boom Kart is that it allows us to play versus our friends in custom server rooms, so I guess we can bump it up to D tier, but only because of that feature, honestly. Now, Creatures of Ether, on the other hand, is pretty freaking awesome. It's a very unique strategy card game, and the only thing holding this game back from true excellence is the monetization system, but because the gameplay is both deep and fun, I'm gonna place this one in the B tier row. Next up is Lost Vault, which is a great post-apocalyptic fantasy MMORPG that mixes active RPG and social elements with semi-idle resource optimization. It got an 8 out of 10 on MiniReview, and because there's a limit on how much we can play each day, and very importantly, no energy system that we can pay to play more, it's just perfect for casual players. So this is an easy A tier game. Night's Edge is a fun, fast-paced 3 vs 3 PvPvE brawler where we rush to defeat 3 rooms of monsters and bosses before our opposing team does. This is one of those super promising titles where I just loved the gameplay, which also got a 9 out of 10 on MiniReview, by the way. The monetization is a bit so-so, but if it continues receiving updates, it could turn into something really great. So let's place it here in the B tier row for now, with some room to grow up to A tier if they continue improving the game. We did get one really great 2D platformer this year as well in Super Mumbo Quest. This is a very fast-paced precision platformer with a large Metroidvania-like world full of crystals to collect, enemies to defeat, and dangers to avoid, and I loved every second of it. It also got an 8.8 score over on MiniReview, and the monetization, where we can pay $2.99 to remove the ads, is just perfect, so I'll have to give this one the S tier status. Now, over in the world of music rhythm games, BeatStar also released this year, and unlike most other mobile EDM rhythm games, and there are so many of those by the way, this one actually has both modern and classic songs in pretty much any genre. The downside to this though is that we can only play a few songs before the energy system kicks in, which is just a shame since the core gameplay is actually pretty solid. This could almost be a D tier game because of the monetization system, but because it can still be enjoyed as a casual music game, I'll bump this one up to the C tier. But if you want to play an actual good Guitar Hero style music rhythm game, I would suggest Queen Rock Tour instead. There's just a single $2.99 in-app purchase to unlock all 20 songs, and so if you're a Queen fan, this is an easy recommendation. It has an 8.5 MiniReview score, and I'm gonna place it here among the A tier games. Next, we've got Crash Drive 3, which is just such a unique game and definitely the most enjoyable casual stunt racing arcade game I've played this year. It basically lets us race around a huge open sandbox world full of ramps, loops, and random events that start every few minutes, where we then compete in wacky games such as Cops and Robbers or King of the Hill against all other players on the server. The monetization did recently get a bit worse, I've heard, but the gameplay is still good casual fun, and so I think it deserves a spot here on the B tier row. Now, this is a tricky one because the sci-fi themed strategy simulation game Infinite Lagrange looks freaking awesome. Its gameplay is okay-ish, but the gameplay is horrible. I gotta admit that it's nice to look at and it seems like a very polished and fancy game, but it just never captured my attention, so I can't really bring it any higher than the D tier row. Next up is Farm RPG, which is a cross-platform text-based semi-idle RPG with simulation-like gameplay where we slowly build up a small farm by growing crops, fishing, crafting, and exploring. The monetization system in this indie game does allow us to unlock some quality of life upgrades, but I've still been enjoying the game without any of those, and you can also save up gold gained through gameplay to buy some of them. It also receives almost daily updates, which is honestly pretty impressive, and so I think it deserves a spot here on the A tier row. Ronin the Last Samurai also got a release this year, and I gotta say that it has some of the best feeling action fighting combat mixed with an Archero inspired roguelike progression system. Although the monetization does limit our PlayStation length to just about 30 minutes at a time and allows you to pay to progress faster, I would argue that the combat makes this an A tier game. Everdale is a casual non-competitive city builder simulation game that could have probably been a C tier game if it wasn't for its neat co-op content where we work with other players to expand our valley. I really enjoyed this aspect of the game, and although it does get a bit repetitive eventually, there's lots to unlock to keep us hooked as well. So if you need a casual game to play for a few minutes here and there, this game is perfect for that, and there's no reason to pay to progress faster as we're not competing against anyone. So let's place it over here among the B tier games. Everdale is another one of those games that haven't globally released, by the way, but that you can of course already download over on TapTap, by the way. Hint hint, links in the description box. Next up, Taravana is a roguelite survival game that plays like a fantasy dungeon crawler, and it really intrigued me initially. But what starts off as a very neat experience quickly turns into a huge grind with expensive in-app purchases almost required to play the game. So let's place it over here on the E tier row and just kinda, forget about it. Let's leave it in 2021. Now it is time for Alchemy Stars though, which is a polished hero collector RPG with a refreshingly engaging strategic combat system and a bunch of nice game modes. This game is on here because I really like the combat system, but its energy system and overall monetization bumps what could have been an A tier game down to the B tier row. You might have noticed that Supercell was on a bit of a release spree this year, by the way, and one of those games ended up being Clash Quest. Sadly, I really think they missed the mark on this one though. It starts out decently fun, but it's mostly just luck-based, eventually gets very repetitive, and the monetization makes it impossible to play for more than 15 minutes at a time. So I'll drop this one to the E tier row. Pokemon Unite also released this year, of course, and it really isn't a horrible experience, especially if played at a casual to mid-core level, and it's obviously an easy pick for Pokemon MOBA fans. Google went ahead and ranked it Game of the Year, and some love it, others love to hate it, but for me, it ultimately lands here in the B tier territory because the monetization is slightly worse than a game like Wild Rift, for example. Next up is Cookie Run Kingdom, a unique RPG hero collector split into sim-like gameplay where we expand our kingdom, and then combat game modes where we use our cookie heroes to fight monsters and bosses. It's actually decently fun overall, but it does have auto combat, it is rather laggy, and the monetization isn't as great as I hoped it would be, so it lands over here in the C tier row. If you're looking for a proper Pokemon-like RPG though, next one Extinction had you covered here in 2021, because that's basically what this is, a Pokemon clone. And the best part is that the first chapter is free, so you can check out the game and see if you like it, while the rest of the game then unlocks for only $2.99 US. It's also available on Steam for PC, and I think it deserves the A tier rank. This next one, Slash of Sword 2, is a neat story-driven RPG adventure fighting game. It features lots of quests to complete and enemies to beat up using various weapons and skills, but once the main campaign has been completed, there really isn't much else to do in the game. The monetization is okay-ish, and I feel like the game almost has B tier potential, but I think I'll land it here in the C tier row, although I am honestly a bit unsure if I'm being too harsh on this one. Dark Zone is a story-driven sci-fi multiplayer RPG with crafting, guilds, real-time and idle co-op combat, player-to-player trading, and an insane amount of awesome loot and a great community. I really enjoyed this one as a semi-idle game, and with a monetization that focuses mostly on cosmetics, it checks all the right boxes for me. It has an 8.3 MiniReview score, and I think it deserves an A tier spot. Now, going back to the games that Supercell released this year, Clash Mini is the latest one of those, and it's essentially their take on the auto chess genre, but I'm glad to see that they changed up the formula enough to make it feel like a new experience rather than just yet another auto chess repeat. This could actually easily have been an A tier game if it had better monetization, but it's still decent and definitely worth checking out, so I'll place it here among the B tier games. And then there is of course League of Legends Wild Rift. I know the matchmaking isn't perfect, but this is definitely among the best MOBAs to ever release on mobile, especially in terms of the core gameplay feel and the monetization system. And with an 8.8 MiniReview score, it definitely deserves an S tier spot. Now, there are some games like Punishing Grey Raven that I simply haven't played enough to properly evaluate yet, but I do have a feeling I'd rank it A tier probably, only held back by its monetization system. So there we go, my friends, the 41 most impactful mobile game releases of 2021 in one awesome mobile gaming tier list. Subscribe for more mobile gaming goodness, check out the tap links below to support the channel, and until next time, just keep gaming, stay awesome, and I'll see you guys around.